grocery shopping, or fare la spesa, as we would say in Italian, isn't just an essential skill, it's an adventure. But there are definitely some things you need to know about it in order to do it well. And there are different ways you can approach grocery shopping in Italy, whether that be at a large supermarket, a smaller specialized shop, or out at the outdoor market. But the wonderful thing is that Italians tend to eat foods when they're seasonal, when they're at the peak of freshness, and you will really enjoy whatever it is that you happen to get. But there are some unspoken rules and there are some cultural norms that surround grocery shopping that you definitely want to know before you head out and give it a shot. And the first thing that we want to talk about, though, are the store hours, because you may see signs just like this. Now, this one is a particularly unique one. It's one of these old school handwritten signs that sometimes you do see in Italy, and they're quite charming. But here we can see, let's point out a couple of things. I'd like to point out that if we look at the store hours, we'll notice it's written in the 24-hour clock. Something you want to make sure you know before going to Italy is that you can tell time in a 24-hour clock. And then we also notice that there's a gap. So we see between 1 and 4:30, this store is closed. That's not uncommon to find, particularly in smaller towns, in cities. You may find in smaller cities and smaller towns that shops close over lunch. And this might even be true in larger cities and some of the larger towns, that you may find some grocery stores that happen to close down during the Italian lunch hour. You'll also notice that this shop closes at 7:30. So the idea of a 24-hour grocery store or a grocery store that's open at 10 o'clock at night would be quite uncommon. Some exceptions might be in a train station in a larger city. I've seen grocery stores or shops that have things that are open a bit later. So be mindful of the store hours and also be mindful of the day of the week that the shop is open, because typically, if we look at this sign here, we can see that the sign says Domenica Aperto. And this says Domenica Aperto, meaning it's open on Sundays, because shops on Sundays might be closed or they may have limited hours. So if you're planning a trip to the grocery store on Sunday, I would verify that it's going to be open first, so you save yourself the trip if it happens to be closed. Now, when we talk about shopping, probably my favorite way, or one of my favorite ways, because I think each way has its own unique aspects, is visiting an alimentari. I love these. These alimentari are essentially small mom and pop or corner grocery stores that are typically family owned and operated. And I really like them, not because of what's inside, but because of something else that I'll tell you about in just a minute here. But if we look at this one, we notice that we see some writing in English on the sign, which means they more than likely cater to a number of tourists who are getting snacks and drinks. But in an alimentari, you're typically going to find things that could get you through your groceries for the week if you needed to. You'll find an assortment of items, and it would depend on what the shopkeeper happens to stock and what the neighborhood perhaps is interested in buying. But you'll find pastas and sauces and olive oil and wine and spirits. You may find fruits and vegetables, things like cereal and rice and perhaps canned foods are things you could also find inside. You might also find some paper towels, some cleaning supplies. They may have a limited selections of cheese. They might offer some bread, or they could have some sliced meats as well. And a bigger one or one with a wider selection might even have some packaged meats or something. So alimentari are really great for that. And they have water, which is nice because in Italy, often we buy the liter or liter and a half bottles of water to drink. So bringing those back to wherever it is that you're staying is convenient at alimentari because you see them, you see a number of them in neighborhoods. So there, chances are that wherever you're staying, there will be an alimentari pretty close by, but there may not be a grocery store close by. And the last reason, and my favorite reason that I really like these shops, is because of the shopkeepers. They're family owned and operated rather. And so many of the shopkeepers are the same each day, and they could be the owner. So you'll get to know them and they will get to know you. You can greet them. They may learn your name. They may learn where you're from. And you can practice your Italian. You can learn about some of the items in the store and have a conversation with them. So it's a really unique opportunity to get to know a local Italian, and I think you'll really enjoy that. I also one thing to be aware of though is because they become your friend or they seem like they're friends and they can be kind of charming. You may walk in there to get a bottle of olive oil and they'll say something like, "Well, don't you need any fruit? How about some pasta? Do you need pasta? I have this." and you end up walking out with 5 items that you didn't intend to purchase, and you're wondering where your money went. But it's all in good fun, and you can have a lot of fun and learn a lot this way. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And the next one is the supermercato, which are the supermarkets. And this is probably similar to what you know from where you're from, but there are a few very important differences. One is that in city centers, the supermarkets tend to be kind of pared down versions. They're not massive, sprawling supermarkets. Those you would find on the outskirts of town, or you might find them in a distance away. You would have to drive to a shopping center. But these smaller supermarkets, and there are different brands of them throughout cities. There's typically a few in each city, and they're quite convenient and have nearly everything you need. Now, note when Italians go shopping, they don't often fill up their massive carts and bring tons of bags home. They tend to go shopping a little bit every day of the week, or at least a few days a week. Now, when we go into the supermarket, you're going to notice this. You're going to notice a scale, which isn't quite uncommon from what you might be used to, but there is a difference. So each number corresponds to some sort of fruit or vegetable, so they make it pretty easy for you. But you'll be expected to weigh your fruits and vegetables before you get to the checkout. If you get to the checkout and they're not weighed, the cashier likely will not help you. And so you're going to have to get out of line, go weigh them. And this can be quite frustrating, particularly if the line's been long and you've been waiting a while. One more thing related to purchasing these fruits and vegetables, and that is they will have plastic disposable gloves near the produce. So you want to make sure you put that glove on before you handle the produce. Italians do this for hygienic reasons. I think it's a nice, considerate thing to do, and actually makes me feel a little better about purchasing produce. Another thing when it comes to heading to the checkout counter is they will ask you if you'd like a bag, because bags are not free. And so many Italians and many visitors tend to bring reusable bags. This could be quite helpful, particularly if you're carrying heavy items over a few blocks. And I like a backpack personally, because backpacks, you can carry heavy items like your big bottles of water and your canned items without a lot of a strain on your back. So I think those are great things to bring too. And then you'll be expected to bag your own grocery. You're not going to have a designated bagger there helping to bag the groceries. Now, when we're in the supermarket, we might see some things that we think are a bit different. And that is that eggs are kept out at room temperature, but they're perfectly safe the way Italians store them. You also will notice that milk is stored out at room temperature as well. And this is ultra pasteurized milk, however, and it's sealed. So it stays for a very long time and it can be stored at room temperature. It's quite common in Italy, but you can find milk that's fresh also in these supermarkets. Something you may not find are foods that would be considered more exotic, and that would include items like peanut butter, things like maple syrup. If you're making, let's say, Thai food, and you want a Thai sauce for your Thai food, for example. You might not find that. Now, bigger supermarkets in larger cities, you're more likely to find a selection of what Italians would consider international foods. Okay, well, let's move on and let's talk a little bit about some of these small shops, such as the Salumeria. This is another way to get your food. So rather than going to the mom and pop shop or the supermarket, you can go to a lot of different specialized shops. I'm just going to cover a couple of them. The Salumeria is a place typically that specializes in cured meats, but you also find some cheeses. And like an alimentari, you may find some sauces. You may find even prepared foods and pastas. It really just depends on what the owner decides to stock. And they're great because you can walk in, you can interact with the owner, much like you would in an alimentari, and probably get to know them. And you can try a variety of different cheeses and ask them questions. What is local? What is this one? They may even give you a taste, perhaps. So it's definitely a fun experience to try a Salumeria. Well, what else do we have? We also have the macelleria, which is the butcher shop. Grocery stores sell raw meats, but you could go to a butcher shop to buy raw meats also. And you might find something that's a little more specialized. You might find some fresher meats, and you can get a particular cut at a butcher shop. So they're worth checking out also. And then as you're continuing your journey through an Italian town, and you have stopped at the Salumeria and you've stopped at the butcher shop, well, why not stop at the panetteria, at the bakery? And they may make bread there, or they may buy bread and bring it in, but they'll have a variety of different rolls and breads, and they might have some other items too, like wines and olive oils. They could have focaccia. They could have cookies. So we have special shops that specialize in cookies and sweets, which is the pasticceria, the pastry shops. Now, if we continue our journey, we could stop at the next one, which would be in fruttivendolo, a seller of fruits and vegetables, and they specialize in these items. But one thing you should know is that when you go to a fruttivendolo, you don't want to just start grabbing the produce and trying to weigh it. The fruttivendolo will come out and they'll ask you what you want, how much you want, and they'll help you with that. So you don't want to just go and handle the produce. All right. The last one that we have is the outdoor market or mercato. On certain days of a week, you'll find an outdoor market in most towns in Italy. And depending on how big the town or city is, you might find one just about every day in different parts of the city. They're typically only open in the morning hours, so be aware of that. But what I like about them, it can really be a fun way to just wander the streets and enjoy witnessing Italians haggle for items or buy items or vendors calling you in to see if they can sell you something at a discount. You might find, depending on the market, one that's just fruit and vegetables. They may have roast meats or chickens that are turning as they roast. You might find cheeses and vegetables. You might even find soaps and perfumes and odds and ends. So the mercato is definitely a fun thing to experience as you're perusing the streets of Italy. Well, that's it for this lesson. Ci vediamo. I'll see you next time.